Hello, and thank you for joining the third continuing education. This one's going out in January. This time we're going to be going over the warm-up. We're just going to be going over a few tips, tricks, and some stuff that I've learned as a coach that really helps out leading a good warm-up and keeping all the kids involved and responsive to what you're doing. At Gymnastics USA, we do a group style stretch, so all the classes come out together and they start stretching together. Luckily, in this video, there's only one class that comes out, so we'll be able to see what it's like with just one coach out there. If it's if it's two classes or more, usually you want an extra coach to just kind of help out the kids with the stretches and everything. Some of the things that we're about to go over is, of course, how to start the warm-up, how to explain and break down some of the stretches, sticking to your routine, and also like some tips on how to finish up the warm-up to make sure that your kids look nice and disciplined at the end. So to get started, let's go ahead and start. As you can see, I'm calling all the kids out today, and I'm really just kind of waving them in. I don't really wait for everybody to get out there. Like, there's still some people struggling in, and I'm not gonna wait for them to get started. I want everybody that's out there to get involved right away. You don't want to make them wait for someone who's just kind of moping around. So right away, I start out with some easy mirror skills. If you don't know what a mirror skill is, it's just a skill that I do, and then the kids repeat it back. Just they can see it and they can repeat it. The second thing I do is I make sure that after they're kind of going along with my arms, I'm doing a quick little exercise. And so what you saw me do was jumping jacks, and I actually broke down the jumping jacks into two different things, and I'll actually back it up so that we can see a little bit better. At the beginning, doing the arms, waving, making sure that they're paying attention to my arms, and then whenever I start the jumping jacks, I break it down into two steps. I have them jump out into the straddle, that's step one, and then I have them jump into a straight stand, and that's step two. And I break it down in these two steps, and then I kind of quiz them on the name of the skill. So as I'm, okay, what is this called? Whenever we do this real fast, everybody yells out jumping jacks. This is a perfect time for a nice lame joke, because lame jokes are always the best to have. My lame joke was, okay, it's called a jumping John, not a jumping Jack. And then, of course, the kids will get a big kick out of it, and it's a lot of fun for them, and then just quickly move on to the next skill. As you can see, what I'm doing with each of these skills is I'm really breaking it down into as many steps as possible. Because if you just tell a kid to put their foot over their other foot, it's not going to end up the best. Some kids will just be lost. So what I'm doing is I'm having them pay attention to my hands, and then I explain very in depth with my words that they need to lift up their foot. They can wave it around. They can say hi to mom by waving their foot, and then they put their foot over their other foot. And so it's really breaking it down as quickly as possible. And now you can see that all the little stragglers kind of came in. So this is pretty much the whole class. It's about an 8-to-1 ratio. I think this time it was 9-to-1. No complaints there. But what I'm doing is I'm constantly talking through each of these stretches. I'm not really letting there be a lull in a conversation. I'm kind of explaining what to do with each and every single time I do a twist, each and every second that I'm doing the stretch, and I'm keeping the stretches really short. You'll notice that each of these stretches are probably like 5 to 10 seconds long, and then each time I'm breaking it down into 3, sometimes 4 or 5 steps. Like with this stretch, I have them first put their arm by the ear, then put their other arm on their hip, and then they reach that top hand to the side as far as possible, and I really slow down my words here so that they can really focus on what I'm saying, and then I might speed up whenever I'm switching to the next skill. That way they kind of get that like excitement feeling. So what I'm really doing right here, and what I want to stress, is breaking those stretches down into multiple steps. And then really an extra tip to make sure that you're not just constantly talking and talking and talking and going through the stretches a little bit too quickly is slow your words down and go from high to low with each of these stretches. And then you can also see here where I have them swing their arms. I'm adding a little bit of fun flair to the stretches. I'm not just saying, hey, move your arms over here. I'm kind of getting creative with it. I'm like, hey, act like you're a gorilla. Swing your arms all the way up into the other side. It keeps them engaged a little bit more because, of course, these are kids. They want to have fun. Even if you were an adult and you had somebody do that, you'd probably give a little chuckle in an adult class as well. But it's very important just to make sure that you're still throwing a little bit of your own little flair into it. And as you can see here, I even did like a seat drop just to make the kids laugh a little bit because it looks like it hurts, but it's a spring floor, so it doesn't really hurt that bad. But another tip that I want to get into, and it's kind of playing off of something that I said before, is each of these stretches are very short. They're very short and simple. They're not going too long. And this one in particular, you can see I've been holding the butterfly stretch for a little bit, but I started off with my feet really close and then telling them to put their nose to their toes. And then I have them every 5 or 10 seconds. They actually go out with their legs. So they start off really close and they go a little bit farther and farther. And then something interesting actually really happened right here is typically whenever I do the butterfly stretch, I tell all the kids to put their nose to their toes, and they always have a really good time with that, and they want to like tell me what their feet smell like and everything. This time I did it, and usually it's a big hit, but these boys and girls didn't really want to put their nose to their toes at all, so I had to change up what I normally do, and it threw me off a little bit, but I changed up what I normally did, and I just told them to put their chest to their feet. So instead of blaming them and being like, hey, do what I say because I said to do it, put your nose to your toes, which is actually kind of gross if you think about it, then I just changed the way I said it, and I told them to put their chest down to their feet, and then you saw that everybody was a little bit more attentive to actually doing the stretch. And then here I'm just throwing a little bit of fun out there, having them switch back and forth from leg to leg. You don't want to do that for too long. If you end up doing a silly joke, like having them stand up and spin around 3 times over and over again, you might lose their attention and then cause the chaos that you're trying to prevent. So instead, I just do it a few times and then make sure that they're all listening, they're all on the same page, and then I move on with the stretches. And you can even see here, I'm going to stress this again, is keeping the stretches short. I'm keeping these stretches short because usually boys at this age, or really anybody at this age, boys and girls at this age, they have a really hard time keeping their attention. You can see all the kids kind of looking around, especially in this back group over here. These kids are really hard to grab their attention, and so instead of trying to get them to focus on something for 60 seconds, I just try to get them to focus on something for 5 seconds. And then if they're not paying attention, then they're kind of missing out, and no one wants to miss out on the class. And you can see here, one of the boys started to run over, and it looked like they were going to get a little distracted, so I had to think on my feet a little bit, and I just played a little game of head, shoulders, knees, and toes with them, something that everybody knows, and it's easy to follow along because I'm just doing a little bit of a call to action. Going on the call to action, it's very important. Pretty much the entire warm-up should be call to action. Everything that I'm saying, you can see me talking a lot. You can't really see the kids, but I'm saying quite a bit, and I'm having them repeat a lot back to me. And if they hesitate for a moment or they just don't know what the call and answer is, I answer for them and then I repeat myself, and then I might have them do it like 2 or 3 times. Like this, I want to make sure that they know what a bridge is. So I yell out, okay, this is a ninja bridge. Can everybody say ninja bridge? If they don't say it, then I'll say it for them. I'll say ninja bridge. All right, let's try that again because you didn't say ninja bridge. Ready, and ninja bridge. And then once they say it, then we kind of move on with the stretch and everything. If you have an older group, sometimes they aren't as adamant about doing the call and answers as much, so you kind of got to use your best discretion with that. If you have a group that is just not about it, then of course just do the stretches and go. But with a super young group, which is going to be most of the Ninja Kids, it's very important to do that call and answer because really they just want to be involved. They just want to be part of the warm up, and they're the entire warm up. You know, you're doing this for them, of course. Right here, this is probably one of my favorite parts of the warm-up is doing these lunges and straight leg stretches and everything because this is where we really get to get loud with it. I do lots of call and answers. I break this down a lot because it's really hard for kids to understand. But I don't get too specific with it because we only have 10 minutes to stretch. It's not like a competitive gymnastics team where you stretch for 30 minutes and you got to be really attention to detail. You get as specific as you can the first time, maybe correct 1 or 2 students, or that you know will actually make the correction, and then you move on with the next stretch. So right here I'm doing the lunges, and I'm doing lots of call to answers. Like you see them beating their chest. That's actually a call to answer. Not everything has to be repeated with a verb. Sometimes a call and answer can be calling something out and then them repeating it with an action. So another one is whenever they kick out to the lunge, I have them pat their leg 3 times and then they ninja kick their leg out into a lunge and they yell out like hi-ya, just to make it a lot of fun. And whenever you're doing these stretches, make sure you're sticking to the routine. I have a specific routine that I follow. I actually do the stretches myself 3 times a week, and then it's the same stretches that I have my boys' competitive team do. Obviously, I just throw a lot more flair into it with the recreational classes, but all these stretches that I've been doing with the Ninja Kids, I basically do the same thing with the boys' competitive team, and I also have them do it in the same order. So if you do the same things in the same order, like every stretch, you're not going to get as tongue-tied as you normally would. You're not going to freak out about what to do next. You're not going to have that kind of lull in the conversation. You're going to have a set routine, and it's going to be a lot easier to follow. And if you have that set routine, then it becomes like second nature. You don't really have to think about it too much. Going back to the end of the practice though, I see Coach John here. He strolled in a little bit late. He was supposed to be my helper. Not a big deal. Sometimes life happens. But he's letting me know that I'm going a little bit over time with the warm-up. It was supposed to be 10 minutes, and I think I was doing 11, 12 minutes because I'm used to doing the boys' competitive team just as much as these classes. So what I do is whenever I have them line up, I have them line up in a specific spot, and I tell them to put a specific part of their body, like their toes, in that specific spot. So in this instant, I tell them to put their toes on the blue line. And so everybody goes and puts the toes on the blue line. They stand in the proper standing position, such as in the lecture course, and then they wait for my attention to call them out. And typically, if there's 2 classes, this is where we split them up and take the roll. We just kept these classes together today, or it was just 1 class, I believe. And I was actually covering for John because he was coming in a little bit late. Now, as soon as you're done with warm-up, of course, you have to figure out how to make it interesting and go to the next station. A lot of the things that I find that my coaches are asking me is how to keep them under control when walking from station to station or walking from event to event. And what I do is I play a lot of games. a lot of line games. And so this one is a simple one. You can see that they're just copying what I do. I call it the copy Coach Garrett. So if I put my hand up, they put their hand up. If I do a little dance, they do a little dance. And this is making sure that they're keeping their attention on me and they're doing exactly what I want them to do, even if it's a little bit silly, because they want to be silly anyways. Well, that's all for today. I hope that that was very helpful. I know that the warm up hasn't been in the lecture training, so I hope you guys have learned something and can take some of my tips to make it more helpful for you. Thanks and stay awesome, Ninja Coaches.